Calvin Coolidge, 30th President of the United States. The American president is arguably considered the most powerful position in the entire world, yet ask around and you'll find that many don't even recognize the name Calvin Coolidge. He was president during one of the most famous decades in American history, the Roaring Twenties, and yet many have opted to call him the Forgotten President. But why? Was he an ineffective president? Was he unpopular? Were people unhappy during his presidency? Or is it simply that his ideals and approach don't fit in with modern concepts of leadership? Now is the time to discover who was Calvin Coolidge. The 1920s were a prosperous era that would change America forever. During this decade, many revolutionary new things came to light. Band-aids, lie detectors, insulin, the television, penicillin, bubblegum, and the car radio, to name just a few. But none were quite as unique as Calvin Coolidge. On July 4th, 1872, John Calvin Coolidge was born to John Calvin Coolidge Sr. and Victoria Josephine Moore. From that small country home, he, like his father before him, would become involved in local politics after his graduation, and worked his way up the ladder when he moved to Northampton, Massachusetts. From city solicitor to state legislator and eventually to governor of Massachusetts, Coolidge found success as a politician. Following this, it was the Boston police strike that would thrust him into national limelight. By claiming that there was no right to strike against the public safety by anyone, anywhere, anytime, he became known as a leader who was strong, decisive, and firm in his actions and beliefs. From here, many reports were glowing. A variety of press sources spoke admirably of Coolidge, and this led him to secure the spot for the vice presidency, alongside President Harding. He would perform his duties as required until the fateful day, August 2nd, 1923. President Harding had died suddenly of a heart attack. Coolidge, at his family home, had to be alerted in the middle of the night of his succession by messenger. His father, a notary public, swore him in, and he simply went back to bed. With an unprecedented, low-key transition of power, the administration of Calvin Coolidge had begun. Out of respect for the office and for the deceased Harding, Coolidge, during his continuation of Harding's term, kept many of his predecessors' cabinet members, even those who were blackened by the Harding administration's scandals, as well as his policies. While finishing out this term, he would, however, sign the Immigration Act as well as the Revenue Act of 1924. The Immigration Act, while not reflecting Coolidge's view on foreigners, was widely accepted by the public and showed early signs of the Red Scare. Coolidge would run for re-election after finishing out Harding's term. Despite a split in the Republican Party with the addition of the new progressive branch, Coolidge managed to win anyway due to apparent trouble in the Democratic Party. With his victory, he secured himself a full term as president, with his own cabinet appointees and policies. Despite signing the Immigration Act, Coolidge himself was remarkably open-minded, taking after Abraham Lincoln. As he states in his autobiography, he was a supporter of women's suffrage, when it was an issue, and in this State of the Union address, he claims that he supported African American and Catholic rights. The Ku Klux Klan, which was a big concern for the country, as evidenced by the multiple letters he received, actually lost influence during his term. Coolidge also signed the Indian Citizenship Act, and was an opponent of lynching, which was prevalent at that time. In addition, he performed the first presidential speech on the radio, as well as starring in the first presidential film. Clearly, Coolidge was a man who wasn't afraid to try new things, at least socially. However, politically, things were much different. Coolidge's economic policy wasn't exactly his. Rather, his policies could be said to be the policies of others. Simply put, he let the people he appointed do their jobs. Herbert Hoover, the Secretary of Commerce, handled industrial policy. Secretary of the Treasury, Andrew Mellon, handled taxation policy. As for the business of the American people, they too were left, for the most part, to their own devices, as he firmly felt that the American people needed to work
less for the government and more for themselves.
Coolidge's laissez-faire ideology has become the point of criticism by many due to his apparent lack of involvement in major issues, such as farmer subsidies or natural disasters. However, Coolidge was not ignoring these issues. Rather, he felt his lack of involvement would help protect them from a corrupted nationalist government, in issues that, at the time, were the responsibilities of state governments. Is this perhaps why Coolidge is referred to as the forgotten president? Because he left responsibility in the hands of the state in situations where he could have solidified his name in history? Is this why the leader who ushered in the Roaring Twenties is so rarely even referred to? And even if he is referred to, his policies are often blamed for the stock market crash of 1929, whereas others blame the Smoot-Hawley tariff, which ushered in an age of protectionism. Perhaps it's because Calvin Coolidge, while a hard worker, wasn't a leader at all, at least not in our modern definition. He didn't lead in innovations such as radio or sound film, but rather he supported them by actually using them. He didn't take control and revolutionize the economy, but he didn't stop it from shifting on its own either, as the people saw fit. Like the Founding Fathers, Coolidge believed in the core principle of America: freedom. He understood the power that came along with the presidency, a power that he treated with respect, and thus used sparingly. He was content not to lead with his own hands, but to unshackle the people. We were the ones that were meant to lead. And with that, he left us a legacy diminished because of the modern world of powerful leaders ready to lead us in new directions, for better or for worse. But Calvin Coolidge's legacy can now be remembered as one that reminds us all to trust the abilities of others, to support initiative, to stand firm in our beliefs, and most importantly, that with great power comes great responsibility.
I believe in the American Constitution. I favor the American system of individual enterprise, and I am opposed to any general extension of government ownership and control. I believe not only in advocating economy and public expenditure, but in its practical application and actual accomplishment. I believe in a reduction and reform of taxation, and shall continue my efforts in that direction. I am in favor of protection. I believe in the permanent court and further limitation of armaments. I am opposed to aggressive war. I shall avoid involving ourselves in the political controversies of Europe, but I shall do what I can to encourage American citizens and resources to assist in restoring Europe with the sympathetic support of our government. I want agriculture and industry on a sound basis of prosperity and equality. I shall continue to strive for the economic, moral, and spiritual welfare of my country. The laws of the land are being and will continue to be enforced